Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Reboot It. Tonight we're joined by
Mark Boltz-Robinson.
Hi Mark, how's it going?
Good.
I don't know why it took so long for the actual recording to start. I apologize for that. Probably the slow bandwidth here.
Yeah.
We live in West Virginia, which has like the worst broadband penetration in the world.
Well, don't they have to tie the packets to a pig and have it run through the field to get it to where it needs to go? Hello, is this thing on?
That's weird. Just died. Completely died. I mean, we're still recording, but I just lost everything. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Sorry. Okay.
It's the Russians don't want you talking about the election.
Exactly. BSides Charm CFP is open. www.bsidescharm.com. So this is a. We can talk about BSides Charm. Mark?
It's some of the same crew from BSides DC work BSides Charm as well. It's a Baltimore area security BSides regional conference. I think it's in April this coming year, but their CFP is open. So wanted to just let listeners know that if they want to get a BSides talk in, there's also a variety of other BSides coming up soon. Information about each of them and where they're located can be found at securitybsides.com. Also wanted to just throw out props to the Security BSides DC team. Even though I'm no longer actively involved with it, they're doing a phenomenal job carrying it forward. I believe they've retained the title of the second largest BSides globally, with an attendee count of a beautiful binary number pattern. It's 1,111 attendees this year.
Nice. Can you beat that with a stick? What's the biggest BSides?
I think it's always going to be BSides Las Vegas, which is always counterpoint to Black Hat DEF CON.
Right.
Although obviously won't be held at the Riviera anymore since they went boom.
Yeah, they blowed it up. It's no longer there. Be interesting to see where they move it to.
Yeah.
Maybe they should take it to Alexis Park.
Yeah, be an interesting idea.
That's where DEF CON started for you, those of you who don't know.
Yes, know your hacker history, people.
Back in the day. So it looks like ShmooCon's coming up too. You added those. Go ahead and talk about that if you would please.
Yeah. So ShmooCon is one of the other primary Washington DC based conferences. It was run and still is, I believe, Bruce Potter, GDead on Twitter, and Heidi. I think are the primary drivers behind that. It's been notably really good conference at the Washington Hilton in January. I believe Jack Daniel used to drive a Shmoo bus down to pick up people throughout the Northeast and bring them down to DC for that. Always encountering snowstorms. And anyway, they have, of course, their ticket sales. They have 2 rounds. The first round was 600 tickets. They sold out in 4.19 seconds. So crazy F5 browser refresh madness each time. The next round will be on December 1st, according to the website. And of course, your other option to get into Shmoo, if you fail miserably at the ticket, as most of us do, is to try and submit for the CFP, which is open until November 18th.
It's what I always did for a ticket. When I used to go, I stopped going. It's a bad time of year for me, and there's no more travel money this year, so I won't be able to go this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been twice. I'm not a fan of the Washington Hilton, to be honest with you. I felt my room was small, cramped, and overpriced, but sounds like most of DC in some ways.
Yeah, I found it, for me, I got to go a couple of times, but I didn't really attend as an attendee. But since when I used to live in the area, I would go and just do like LobbyCon, BarCon.
Right. Well, that's always a good time too.
So
I will put the ShmooCon information in the show notes before I publish it, so that people will know what the link is, etc. So we'll put that in well, I was going to say the weekly rotation, but whenever we record this rotation, we're coming up here on winter break for me, and also we are coming up on Christmas break. So I sort of hope to be more regular in putting these out. So thanks everyone who listens. We hope to have more shows for you, a lot more shows coming up. This is also sort of turned into the HackerCon podcast, which I never really meant it to be. It's great that we can beat the drum on HackerCon Secure WV. So, Mark, you'll be in Charleston, fabulous Charleston, West Virginia for Secure WV HackerCon, right?
yes, I'm very much looking forward to it. I actually already started in an attempt to stave off procrastination, working on my slides for my talk on incident response, WTF, etc. So very much looking forward to attending.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. It's amazing how fast it's crept up with everything that's going on right now. And then all of a sudden, hey, wait, it's Secure WV. But I'm looking forward to it. We'll have a good time.
Yep. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of people in real life finally that friends with and know of and everything. But, you know, it's typical for those of us in the internet security, information security community. You need the cons to actually connect real life.
We have some preliminary attendance numbers, and the hotel room block was pretty full. I think the hotel room block is now closed. But you can still get rooms, of course. You're just not going to get it in the special discounted rate. And I actually use my travel money for Secure WVs just because I want to stay. Even though I live an hour away, it's easier for me just to stay there. So.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Security BSides DC when I was the co-director. Even though I lived in Northern Virginia, it was easier to just stay at the hotel than it was to try and go back and forth.
And that way you can drink all the booze and hack all the things and not have to worry about driving home. The biggest event we have here in West Virginia is we just got Uber just in the last few months. And that was because there was legislation that basically regulated Uber out of our market until recently. But we're happy to have Uber here finally, so we don't have to worry. Use cab companies who are traditionally slow. This isn't an area where a lot of people use mass transit. So it was either the bus or the cab, and both are not probably the fastest way to travel. But we have Uber now. So if you want to come, those that are listening, you can still get tickets of the day up to the day of the con. The only thing that we're worried about is if the attendance gets to the point where the fire marshal shuts us down, and we haven't approached that yet. So not yet anyway.
It's always better at hacker conferences if the fire marshal's shutting you down instead of the police.
Yeah, that's true too. That's very true. Or the feds. But
yes.
we have feds speaking in our con, so I think we'll be okay. So the stories I had this week, and I kind of threw these together. I didn't throw them together. Let's use another terminology. I planned these so that we could talk about some of the issues surrounding the election, which just happened yesterday. We're recording this the Wednesday after the great event, or the momentous event, which left a lot of people very sad or very happy, depending on which side of the aisle that you're on. I really don't want to talk about politics, but we can talk about some of the information technology, the security that surrounds things on like voting. So one of the things I said on election day is that I can bank online, I can trade stocks online, I can file my taxes online. Why can't I vote online?
Because in an election, of all things, with the elections being as close as they are, especially with things being as divisive as they are, with foreign powers allegedly having an interest in the outcomes. If you think about things like online banking, for example, like Tesco was just in the news for having all kinds of issues with online transactions that they don't fully understand what's behind it. There's just the number of, yes, you can do your online, retail and everything, but there are known cases of those systems being popped, of there being issues, and all it takes is phishing one election officer to get malware into the system to run rampant. It could be either something like ransomware, saying our candidate wins or else kind of thing. Who knows? The way things are right now, I think crazier stuff could happen. But the bottom line is that we have security issues with those other systems already today. And an election, just at least at a national level. Read the article from CNN. They were talking about like Markham, Ontario, for example.
Yeah, that article's older, but it was probably one of the best articles I could find on the issue.
Mm-hmm. So, that's great that, works at maybe like a local level like that. But for a national election, I don't see that it's neither necessary nor practical. I think for me, an election, as a responsible citizen, I think you should have to put in more effort to learn about your candidates, learn about the issues, be involved in the community, and get out to vote, whether it's early voting or at the poll booth. But you should have some responsibility to do that and put more effort into it than it takes you to order stuff from Amazon.com.
Or pizza online.
Or pizza. I think that the issues I have right now, and the reason why some of the stuff is kind of jacked up, is that I don't understand why absentee ballots are recorded the way they are, where that ends up taking that's the delay in a lot of these outcomes for the states that haven't been called yet, is that they have to open up all the absentee ballots.
Right, and all the challenge ballots as well.
Right, any provisional ballots. And so they have to, and then we have the touchscreen systems that were introduced as a result of the HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, post 2000 election, where everybody went out and bought these, the Diebold touchscreens. They have security issues, and they just mechanically they're terrible too, because the touchscreens don't properly register input. I just think that's a terrible idea. What I think would work best, and I say this as a former election officer, I worked a number of elections, throughout the 2000s in Northern Virginia. And as an election officer, I can say that the Scantron ones, where you fill in the bubbles, just like you're taking a test, and you feed it into the machine, it counts it electronically, so it's really easy to tally. At the end of the night, that those machines can be done in like 2 minutes. They're reliable. They count. I think you can prove that they count accurately because you can mark the ballot and spit it through and validate that it actually produces the correct result each time.
I guess when you canvass election, that's one of the things that you do if you're using that particular system. Is that correct? Yeah.
Right. Whereas the electronic touchscreen ones, you can't validate the integrity of those as much.
Well, it depends on the system. Some of them have a paper tape as well, but then again, you have a paper tape, but no way of validating what was actually pushed on the touchscreen. So I guess it's I've used both, but the county I lived in before I moved here used the bubble system, or is it called Scantron?
Right.
And now here they use touchscreen, and
I think the touchscreen is also, it ends up being slower for a lot of people.
It has to cycle through everything.
Right. Whereas, and then the other reason why I think it's better to go the Scantron route is that not only does it allow all of that, but of course we have the paper trail backup, and the Scantron can validate the logic, let's say, of the ballot, that you voted for the correct candidates, that you didn't vote for more than one, and you
did not a trail,
errant marks, and all of that. But you have an audit trail, and you wouldn't have an online audit trail with an online system either. At least anyone that I would say is completely non-repudiating. So,
well, here's my argument, and bear with me for a second, is that we know we have problems with it, it doesn't shake our confidence in the banking system. We buy things online, we know there's problems with it, but yet it doesn't shake our confidence in the e-commerce system. We pay taxes online, yet it doesn't shake our confidence with the taxation system. Other things might, they don't. And to me, my argument is, I don't know whether I'm right or not, but I'm airing this as a devil's advocate because I'm undecided on this. If you can do those things and not shake the confidence in the underlying system, is it worth examining as a possible solution moving forward? I think also that one of the biggest pitfalls is that all this stuff will go to the lowest bidder, which means it'll be crappy. You'd really have to have an asserted effort to nationalize the election system, which most people wouldn't stand for. And because of politics and because of fiefdom guarding. But, you know, we do have the example of, is it Estonia that votes online? There's a couple of places.
It mentioned Estonia and one other place in the article where they do it online, and they seem to be pretty successful with it so far. But on the other hand, there aren't nation states interested in changing the outcome of Estonian elections the way they would be interested in changing the outcome of ours.
Well, was it the Estonians that got the full wrath of the Russian government when they moved the Russian Soviet hero statue? They got knocked offline for a couple of days? Was that the Estonians?
That was the Estonians as well, yes.
Yeah. So we sort of have already seen that in some way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And then,
but not in the case
when
of
somebody takes the Marisai worm or botnet from all the IoT devices, for example, and trains that on the election system, then what?
A lot of people anticipated that happening yesterday, and it didn't seem to have any sort of didn't see disruptions. At least I did not see any noticeable disruption from Marisai.
Right, but the point is that we've seen capability for massive DDoS that can, I mean, it took a country offline. What does that say when you have an electoral system that's also developed, as you said, by the lowest bidder, by contractors that did the Health Care Act website for the federal marketplace, right?
Healthcare.gov.
So, and how long did it take to sort that mess out?
It's still not sorted out, I don't really think. Dave Kennedy went and testified before Congress twice trying to get it fixed, and they turned that into political football. It was sad. It was sad to watch. It made me so mad. It was this time of the year he was testifying, I remember, because I walked back to my old office and was eating popcorn and broke a tooth. And I told him it made me so mad I broke a tooth.
Mm-hmm.
But they did not treat him with respect. And no, I don't use that particular system, so I don't know. But it's not good.
So are they insurmountable problems? Maybe not, but we already have so many challenges to get so many other things right. And although you pointed out that we still trust in the integrity of, filing your taxes online and shopping online and stuff, I think part of the reason for that is that we can abdicate the responsibility of an attack. Banking transaction that's fraudulent, the bank takes care of it. I don't care. I don't need to know if the vendor was PCI compliant or any of that kind of stuff. I trust that, that'll be sorted out. But with an election, they don't know if my vote's counted or not. And look at how much scrutiny the election system gets already. We've trusted in this outcome, but I don't know.
I'm sorry. I just think it's an interesting thing to think about moving forward. Maybe we're not ready now. There's never going to be something that's 100% secure, of course. We know that. But I don't know. I know that in some cases people can vote absentee online, and the way they do that is they download and print a ballot and then fill it in and then send it back
Mm-hmm.
via. I think you can send an email, but it has to be scanned, or you have to have an electronic facsimile. But I guess we sort of already moved in that direction. And with things such as early voting, the question becomes, is it necessary to vote online? Or is it just a matter of convenience? And we all know how convenience works out with security. Just because it's convenient does not mean it's secure. Probably if it's convenient, it's probably not secure at all.
Right. So I think that, as I said, I think in your Facebook post about that whether we like it as security practitioners or not is really likely not going to matter. It's all going to be a question of time. And I think that within our lifetime, certainly, if not absolutely within the next 20 years, we're definitely going to have an election that's carried out electronically.
I found out something very sad today. I'm looking at LL Bean's website, and they don't sell clothes big enough for me. To be young and skinny. Anyway, on to the next story. I'm full of segues and things that aren't on subject. Can you tell I'm a college professor?
Mm-hmm.
Indiana county government shut down by ransomware to pay up. So this is another ransomware story. Why do we keep seeing these?
Because people still click on links in email attachments and open attachments. Phishing's easy. Spear phishing is even relatively easy to do. And the way the ransomware works, you get one little piece that's the dropper, and then it does other things. And a lot of these tools these days, when I look at the work I now do in incident response, so much is dependent on actually getting a memory dump of the machine because the malware doesn't even touch the file systems.
Right.
So it's very difficult for, any kind of endpoint protection to detect it by default. We actually do now have a ransomware interceptor tool that's free to download. It's kind of in a pilot stage right now. That supposedly does like a lot of that detection by looking for the spots in memory where ransomware likes to hang out when it's doing stuff, to hopefully stop it before it encrypts too many files.
Yeah, that'd be useful, I'm sure.
What I find interesting about this one is that it's also that the insurance company said, yeah, just pay the man.
Well, yeah, and my question is, and I've spent a lot of time talking about ransomware on panels, and usually talking about ransomware related issues on Friday for our healthcare panel. That basically, if you've got good verified backups and a proper incident response plan, you should never have to pay the ransom.
Right. I think that it's backups and secured backups. You got to make
Right.
sure that the backups are stored offline somewhere. At least every other backup you've got to have separate from the systems. But if the endpoint system can mount the file share where the backup is, that means the ransomware can too. And if the ransomware can encrypt the backups, then you're doubly hosed. So,
And then you're paying Bitcoin to somebody. The other issue that came up, we're talking about today, the planning for the panel on Friday, is if you do pay up and you're a healthcare provider, what kind of risk are you assuming when you do that? Because most hospitals and doctors don't want other third parties knowing their business. And B, and I jokingly said, and they actually had a long discussion about it, do you have to have a business associated agreement with whomever your broker is that buys the Bitcoin? And I'm sure that these are questions sort of larger than the topic we're talking about here, but I guess it's a question to ponder. But yeah, it's going to be a problem moving forward. But I still understand why people don't have good backups, which they test. I was on a panel about, well, I wasn't on a panel, I was in an event that talking about incident response, and I'm like, you have a disaster recovery plan. If you have an incident response plan, you should test it. You should have at least, the very least, tabletop exercises to test your incident response plans. And I having one in the first place is probably the first thing to get people through, but we do disaster recovery pretty well anymore. We also need to throw in incident response.
Yeah, we talk to that subject all the time too on the Foundstone side of the house within the company about the importance of making sure that you do your tabletop exercises, just as with firemen, rescue, all the first responders for real life physical incidents. You've got to practice. You got to validate that it works and that people know what they're doing, because you're involving a lot of other people who aren't used to that kind of thing. Who your PR people in marketing, and in terms of what happens with disclosure and the legal team and everything else, that just all has to come into play if there's an event, especially if the incident is not just an incident but an actual breach.
Right.
So absolutely imperative that organizations start looking at that. We suggest as a starting point often that folks start taking a look at attack.miter.gov or org. Sorry, they're quasi-government, but not really, I suppose. But anyway, they've got a really nice model for the maturity of threat management and incident response and stuff that I think is a good starting point for people wanting to know more about how to improve their program. So.
It's interesting. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of, I guess maybe in a case of a government, we've seen a lot of governments who've paid these ransoms. I'm sure there's private entities and things like hospitals and doctors, and I know of cases of lawyers paying them. I guess it's just not as publicized because they're not governments, and governments need to have transparency. So they're definitely making money off of this scam, or they wouldn't continue to do it, and it's frightening. Glad I'm not a network defender anymore. I can talk about this stuff without getting into the guts of it, but it's scary, scary stuff.
Yeah, it's going to continue as long as they can make money off of it. I mean, you can get some of the stupidest spam emails but you know that you're getting it because somewhere somebody is going to be dumb enough to do
click
something
it.
with that email, and
Yeah.
the benefit to them is good enough. So,
Shoot, I had a thought, and of course it went in one. It started in one part of my brain and escaped out the other. So I wonder how many instances people have paid the ransom and they didn't get the decryption key.
I haven't heard of too many of those. I've heard of it, but I don't think it's the norm, and I think that it doesn't make sense for the ransomers to do that, because if too many ransomers don't pay, then nobody's going to pay anymore.
Right.
Because if they're like, well, if I'm not going to get my files back anyway, then I'm not going to
Heck
get
with
the
it.
money.
I've heard stories that actually these ransomware groups have set up call support lines, and they'll actually help you with the payment and decryption. So it's like it is a criminal enterprise. It's being run like a business, so that also tells me they're making money off of it.
Yep.
So the next story is, yes, Donald Trump, the FBI can vet 650,000 emails in 8 days. I think that you'd probably be able to do this in about a few hours.
I think I would probably spend more time writing the bash script to do all the necessary setup grep magic
Right.
to move the files around and manipulate them to get them the way I want them to do my search.
Right.
Then it would take the computer to actually search through that many files.
Yeah.
So
I think it's well documented that it's not some sort of technical feat. Coming from law background, e-discovery, we do this sort of stuff all the time. And I'm
right.
sure on the criminal side too.
Yeah, 650,000 emails. The question is, why did it actually take 8 days? I mean,
Well, they probably took longer to write the actual letter saying they did it and didn't find anything and get the wording right than it did actually to make the search.
right. Because, I mean, that's something, 650,000 emails. Emails are essentially ASCII text.
Right.
They're
Nothing special.
MIME type decoding, etc. That's all really easy to do. So they don't take up a lot of space. If I can search through a binary memory dump that's 3.8 gigs from a 4 gigabyte RAM system to look for strings and in memory, then I'd see no issue with being able to parse that many emails looking for keywords for wrongdoing of whatever kind. So,
Right.
So yeah, that's the other question I had then, though, is why did it take so long to parse the original 30,000? And I think that's in part because just bits of pieces of both Trump's understanding of this as basically, I think, the antiquated notion that everybody thinks that they actually like have to print off all the emails on paper and actually go through with, highlighters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of that is that when Clinton had said in some of the talks when she was defending her actions with the 30,000 emails, she said that she indicated a couple of times that they actually did print them off and hand the paper copies over to the FBI.
Right.
So that's probably why that took longer. Plus, of course, there was all, the legal chain of evidence, custody, et cetera, and court orders to whether or not you're actually allowed to look at the emails and search warrants and all the other bits and pieces that have to fall into place. So which is probably what took one of the 8 days at least for them as well. They did have to wait that time to get the warrant.
Right. Exactly. They had to deal with the process, and the process that was popular, whether it was proper. You have to deal with chain of custody. You have to deal with negotiation of how email will be turned over. So there's a lot of things going on there. And I think that after they started looking at these emails, there was also the human element where you actually found things that had to be reviewed by a human being, and then there was some gray area or discussion about what it meant, what they found. So that's probably part of it too. And the other thing is the wheels of government turned very slowly.
Yes, indeed.
Much like the wheels of academia. So So, U.S. government hackers ready to hit back if Russia tries to disrupt election. So, the threat that the administration made was you take down our election, we take down your power grid. So, when do we start making such dangerous statements to foreign nations?
That's a good question. I do know that it's safe to say that we're in the networks of a bunch of other countries, both allies and enemies,
And have been for years.
and have been for years. And I'm also fairly certain that we can expect that some of them are in our networks as well.
Exactly.
I think that we have always said that U.S. Cyber Command is tasked with offensive capability as well as defensive response. They never really explain what exactly that means.
Right.
I hope it just doesn't require or use the use of like geolocation on an IP address to target the missiles.
Yeah, that would be bad.
I'd hate to find out that just because my neighbor didn't secure their wireless that
Yeah, now they're getting nuked or they're getting droned.
yeah. So yeah, I did think that was kind of a very interesting claim, especially on top of the allegations that Russia has been influential in this whole thing to begin with.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, not getting into the politics of it, but I still think that this kind of thing is going to be an interesting thing in the future. And where do we get our mutually assured destruction deterrence for this the same way we have for like nuclear?
Well, I mean, according to Richard Clark in his book Cyber War, which I use for my class, basically the idea that we're all in each other's systems and we can all flip off the power grid at any time is our mutually assured destruction deterrent. And that's the reason nothing's ever happened up to this point. We've seen targeted attacks against the Iranians and with Stuxnet and they blowing up, not blowing up, but causing their centrifuges to malfunction and shatter. But how many people have ever died from cyber warfare? Not many, if any. And all of a sudden, we're rattling, excuse the phrase, our cyber swords at the Russians for doing something they've probably been doing for years, which is trying to manipulate our elections. I'm wondering what happened with the DNC hack. The questions if Guccifer 2.0 was under the influence they're being paid by the Russians, and then the subsequent WikiLeaks release of the DNC hacked email, if the administration just felt like they were being painted into a corner and if they had to do something.
I think it's likely that they did feel painted into a corner. This is very much a reaction to all of that. I'm not certain that, from what I've read of the content of what's in WikiLeaks, I don't think that they necessarily were like helped by the Russians or were helping the Russians. WikiLeaks has been doing what WikiLeaks does, and it seems like there's just now a bunch of people that realize that WikiLeaks doesn't give a damn and gonna do their thing. And this time they didn't like what they did, and they were liking what they did before, and don't understand that it's actually the same thing.
Right.
So,
well, it's interesting. We've seen on election. I posted this earlier today. It's been driven by memes, the alt-right. Basically memes, trolls, and social media. In the previous elections, the Obama administrations, the first term, the second term were very much predicated by social media. Now we have this sort of out of left field group of trolls who basically are being led by Weave, who basically, whether they meant to or not, probably engage. Well, they did engage in information warfare enough to confuse people to confound people and possibly get Trump elected. Although I don't know if we can give them full credit. I think that it's definitely part of the narrative.
Yeah, a part maybe. I think that this comes down to much simpler responses. I think it's there's more fundamental things that went wrong in this whole cycle. That I don't know that was a huge part of it, but and I just had one of those phantom thoughts too that just came and went before I could grab onto
Sorry.
it.
I have more and more of those, it seems, anymore.
Yeah. Anyway.
So let's see. The next story is, as Rule 41 deadline looms, an expansion of FBI hacking powers look likely. So what is Rule 41?
That's a good question.
Sorry, I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I thought you had it open.
This was the I know that they have this. It's the one section of, was it Patriot Act? Was one of
I believe
it was the wiretapping thing, I think.
Yeah, you're right. It's the mass surveillance stuff.
Yeah, basically you have to get a search warrant even if it's from a secret court.
Right.
And they have to be within their jurisdiction, and
you have to have probable cause, or at least claim that you have probable cause to move forward.
Right. And I think that it's that U.S. judges can issue warrants outside their election if it gets passed, or
right,
if it comes to pass. So
and I believe just takes effect.
Throw all of that out, basically, especially in cyber-related cases, as the article notes. I obviously a further erosion of the Fourth Amendment. And I think that although this article was penned November 1st, so pre-election, I think the election outcome shows, I think regardless of the outcome, it would have been something that is all but certain at this point, that the FBI will have expanded powers to do hacking on their own, to get information.
It looks like Congress is trying. The House and the Senate both have penned a bill to stop this, and there's no chance of it even making it out of committee before it goes into effect. I think it goes into effect on December the 1st. Pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, but I'm kind of wondering how long they're going to stick to that before they pen another bill under the administration that expands the powers, because the government likes power, and it's at a point where no matter which side you're on, if you've got the power, you want to use it to its fullest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And it'll be interesting to see how this administration moves forward with cyber-related activities and initiatives.
Yep.
So your last story is the story you put, which is the denial of service attack at HVAC and Finnish apartments. Yeah.
So this was an interesting one because it's, not terribly warm in Finland at this time of year.
Yeah, it's like winter and stuff.
It looks like it leads to a 404, but I had the news earlier.
I had issues with this link, not this particular link, but I had to the original story. I think it was.
Yeah, if you go to the home page and then back again, it
works
around. But so they basically, there was there were heating systems in Finland, and they actually are distributed heating to housing blocks. And Lappeenranta is like the eastern part of Finland, getting probably uncomfortably close to Russia at this point. And they, the Finns do this a lot where they have like massive steam plants that pipe heat to multiple buildings at once. And so this was a under denial of service attack that basically took the heating systems down. And of course, that always begets the first question in my mind: why was the heating system on the internet in the first place?
Right, exactly. So someone can manage it, I'm sure.
Right. And again, I'll maintain that I think that there are certain systems where it is far more important for somebody to actually have to put pants on and go to a location.
Like water systems,
nuclear systems, power plants in general. So, yep, they actually attributed this to the Mirai botnet.
Right, I saw that.
And that it's just another example of where I think things are going with IoT devices, is not only being the attacker, but the attackee, and that people don't understand or realize how many systems are connected to the internet these days, and how important it is to go to Shodan and find out if your IPs are public and exposing services accidentally to the internet.
We put a link to the tool that would do that for you in the show notes last week, so so that you go out and check and see if your stuff's on Shodan.
Yep. So, and I think we're going to see more of this in the future. But I mean, how much does it suck if your Nest thermostat says you need to pay 2 Bitcoin before you can turn the furnace back on? Yeah.
Yeah. Problematic. Very problematic.
Or if it's 120 degrees outside in Arizona, the thermostat says, nah, you know what? I'm not going to turn the AC on for you. I know me personally, I'd be ripping the box off the wall and
that's
wiring it myself.
That's the reason I never invested in Nest. In the Nest, I'm sorry, not Nest. Is that things like that? Even though that I thought about buying one years ago, it concerned me. I agree with you that some things don't need to be connected to the internet, and for me, that includes my thermostat.
Yeah.
And my doors.
The old school Honeywell dial thermostat.
Oh yeah, those are my favorite.
1957.
I had one of those in my apartment that I moved from last year until probably 2 or 3 years ago, and they finally replaced it. Those are hard to find anymore. They're probably like on eBay as like vintage thermostats.
Right. Yeah, but like here in Vermont, I don't need like the fancier systems, and like the one thermostat in the house actually has like switches for you can program it to turn the temperature up, turn the temperature down.
Right.
And it actually has like fan control. I have a oil boiler that heats water that runs through pipes.
Right.
Baseboard radiator, water-based heat. There is no fan.
Right. That's pretty common in the Northeast, isn't it? Oil heat.
There's a lot of systems now, though. A lot of houses are getting, like my parents actually, they live just south of me, and they actually have a heating system now that doesn't take much, but you can flip it from oil, wood pellet, electric, so you can take the best advantage to whatever is the cheapest source of heat at any given time,
depending on the market. Yeah, that's a good deal. Sometimes I wish I had that option here. We have gas heat, and it's okay. Actually, I think we spend more on air conditioning than we do on heat. To electricity in West Virginia for a state that produces coal that powers a large number of electric what is the word I'm looking for? Burn the coal, make the steam, make the electric power plant. Our electric rates are some of the highest in the nation. So cooling this place is not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I got all tongue-tied there. And that usually happens when I'm in class. I'm going to have to start taking better notes. But anyway, I appreciate you coming on. I can let you go. It's been a pleasure to have you on and have some intelligent discussion about these issues, and you're welcome back anytime you can come.
All right. I appreciate that. It was good talking to you too, and I look forward to seeing you in person in a couple of weekends.
Yeah, not too far away. So thanks, everybody, and have a good week.